What's up guys, it's Clipto here. This is my second time doing this video because I actually forgot to hit record on the first time. I'm here today to talk to you about saturation. So what exactly is saturation? Well, beginning first, so saturation plays a critical role in professional audio mixing, provides both technical and aesthetic benefits. Originally stemmed from the analog days of recording, where pushing levels into the red on tape machines or tube amps would introduce a pleasant harmonic distortion. Saturation has become a sought-after effect in the digital ability to add warmth, depth, and life to digital recordings that might have otherwise sound too clean or sterile. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some key components on why saturation is important in professional audio mixing. 1. So it adds warmth and character. Saturation can add a little warmth, pleasing quality to audio signals, especially in the digital recording where it lacks the characteristics of analog gear. I do have some analog gear right here. I have the Rat, and then I also have the MXR. These are both distortion pedals, and I run it through my 303 that I have down here. The warmth is often associated with the vintage gear, as I just talked about, or other types of gear too, but this is just analog, it's not vintage. And it's highly desirable in many genres of music, which for me as a techno producer, I use saturation all the time. It just kind of helps boost the levels of certain signals. Number 2, it enhances harmonic content. Introduces additional harmonics to the original signal, which can make the sound fuller and richer. This is particularly useful for thin sounding recordings or instruments that need to stand out a little bit more in the mix. Meaning is, say if I have a synth or if I have a drum and it doesn't really sound exactly where I want it and I don't want to add a compressor on it, I can then drive the saturation a little bit harder, or maybe even just put up the drive a little bit and then put the wet dry a little bit more. There's different ways I can boost it, and I can get into that a little bit later. Number 3, it creates perceived loudness. Saturation can make tracks sound louder without actually increasing peak levels. This is because it increases the density of the sound, making it stand out more in the mix without clipping or causing other issues associated with excess volume. But the thing about that is whenever you increase the loud, or whenever you drive up the saturation, it drives up all levels of all frequencies as well. So just keep that in mind. Number 4, it glues the mix together. Applying subtle saturation on a mix bus or group can help glue the elements together, creating a cohesive sound which all parts feel like they belong in the same sonic landscape. This is a common technique used to unify the sound of a mix. Number 5, so it adds punch and clarity. For rhythmic elements such as drums and basses, saturation can add punch and clarity, making them more pronounced and dynamic in the mix. This can be particularly useful in genres where the rhythm section plays a central role. 6, controls dynamic. Saturation naturally compresses the dynamic signal, which can be helpful for controlling the dynamic range of a performance without resorting to heavy compression. This can preserve the natural feel of the performance while ensuring it sits well in the mix. Number 7, improves digital sound quality. In the digital domain, saturation plugins can emulate the desired characteristics of analog hardware, helping to mitigate some of the harshness and sterility that comes with digital recording processes. Number 8, versatility in sound shaping. Different types of saturation, such as tape, tube, and transistors, can be used to achieve various tonal characteristics, giving mix engineers a wide palette of sonic textures to work with. This versatility makes a powerful tool for creative sound shaping and experimentation. Number 9, last one. It aids in mixing and mastering phases. Beyond an individual track, saturation is also used in mixing and mastering phases to add cohesiveness and ensure that the final product translates well across different playback systems. So what does this all mean? The importance of saturation in audio mixing cannot be overstated. It's a multifaceted tool that when used skillfully can significantly increase the quality, vibe, and emotional impact of a mix. Whether aiming for a specific vintage tone or simply trying to add depth and interest into a track, saturation is a go-to effect for audio professionals. So I'm gonna hop in the DAW now and I'm gonna show you exactly what saturation does to a sound. God, this fucking bright light. All right. Okay. first one is an example without saturation. You can kind of tell that it was pretty low. It already had some good harmonic content inside of it because this was a drum loop that I just swiped off of my computer. However, on the second part, I decided to add the saturation there. You could hear the little bit of warmness and clarity, especially coming out in that groove. And it was also kind of giving it more of a... Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find a loop off of my computer. All right, let's find something, a synth loop. Now, most of the samples I have in here are already decent. Let's go ahead and change this BPM. We'll throw this bad boy in here. Oop. So this loop already sounds pretty good as it is, but for simplicity's sake for this video, I'm gonna go ahead and just try it again. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna choose the Ableton saturator, and as you can see, I have a bunch of different ones. I have Trash 2, Sausage Fattener, Saturn, the regular saturator, Rift, Overdrive, the G37, Decapitator, and my own special distortion rack, and then also a bass guitar amp emulator. Okay, so talking about the characteristics over here, so we have the drive. This is actually what adds the harmonic distortion to the actual waveform itself. As you can see right here, if you just click this little button right here, it'll show you whatever waveform you're working on. This is analog clip, so what it's doing is it's molding the waveform and it's turning it into more of a bend right here, which adds more harmonic content. And as you can see how it shapes almost, or it's kind of like halfway from between a sine wave and also between a square wave, which is effectively whenever you distort something so much, it then clips and then turns into basically what a square wave is. All right, and if you just turn on this little thing right here, it'll go ahead and show you exactly, or the info view will show you exactly what each of these things do. So as it says right here, the input drive, basically whenever I drive this much harder, you'll hear it turn more into this waveform. So I'm gonna go ahead and just turn this down a little bit. This is already turned down. So let's just drive and hear what it does. It gives it rather an aggressive sound, which also makes it become unclear. Let's go ahead and add span on top of this and we'll actually be able to analyze what it does. All right, and then I'll go ahead and just add a spectrum on this as well, just so you can also see it right here in conjunction with that. So let's reset that. All right, let's go ahead and drive this. So we can see there's probably fundamentals right here, and we have a couple of overtones right here. So now let's go ahead and drive this. I make sure I turn this down because it's going to get rather loud. So as we can see, there's some more harmonic content coming out right here, but whenever I drive this up, you can see that the whole signal is being driven up. Now it's getting particularly muddy right here in the mid-lows. But you can see all this harmonic content coming out right here. All right. Let's bring that back down. Okay. So right here we can change what style of saturation we want. The most popular ones are all, of course, these four right here. Soft sine, you can see it kind of rounds off a little bit more. Medium curve, a little bit more aggressive. You can hear it sounds a little more gritty. Hard curve, more aggressive. You can see those overtones coming in right here. This one, I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Here's sine fold. It almost adds some resonance at the top, and it kind of curves off a little bit. As you can see, it follows this waveform. Let's turn this back down. Although I like that, it gives a little bit more of a bite. Digital clip. See those tones coming in right here too. Let's turn that down a little bit. All right, and then wave shaper. Wave shaper matter, so we'll go ahead and drive this. Gives you more of a custom ability. What otherwise a natural sound, in my opinion. Okay, so going into that. So DC offset is basically balancing off the source and also the trough, so it's more balanced, but don't really worry about that right now. So whenever you select this color button right here, it activates the bass, frequency, and width and depth, and this is basically where exactly it saturates. So let's go ahead and start turning these knobs and see what happens. I'm gonna turn the drive up just a little bit, turn this up a little bit. Now let's just see what happens to the signal. So it looks like I'm just saturating further up the frequency, and you can kind of see how it's pulling the energy from the lows and putting it more into the highs. And now it's just noise at that point in time. All right, let's bring it down. Okay. Frequency doesn't do anything. Now let's move it in conjunction with bass. Coloring the filter, I don't really hear anything. Start moving other knobs. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it's adding some resonance right here, and it sounds like depth is the one that's enabling that. Let's see what width is doing. So you can see right here in the high end, we have some side information coming through. Whenever we turn that down, it's not as prominent in the mix. Let's just mess with it a little bit, see if we can find something cool. I like that little bit of grit on the top end. Now, honestly, I wouldn't really use this sound for much, or I wouldn't saturate it like this, at least this instrument. We can try doing maybe a different type of saturation, see how it sounds. Yeah, be careful for your ears on this. Whoa. Let's turn that down a little bit. Weird pumping effect. All right, let's try a different one. You can hear that sine fold. So basically what it's doing is it's taking the signal and it's condensing it down, where it gives it that little weird sound, or gives it that like nasally sound. It's very harsh though if you turn it up really loud. Alright, and then we can get creative with wave shaper. Alright. Sounds very dirty. I'm not particularly a fan of this one. Probably be better on a different instrument. Okay. So sorry, a little bit of a head. So right here you have your wet dry. Basically it's the unaffected sound going into the affected sound. Drive this up a little bit. Honestly, this sound doesn't really need to be distorted at all or saturated. All right. We have soft clip right here, which is act as a limiter. So you can see how it's just stopping it. It's not going any more than that. But yeah, so that is the Ableton saturator. Now another question that you might ask is, what type of saturation do I use on each sound? And really, to be honest, that's completely up to you. Everybody has their own preference on what type of saturation that they want to do. So in my case, I have these several types of distortion or saturators that I use. One of my favorites, Trash 2, it's an old one. There's a ton of different presets that you have on there, and the interface is a little bit old, but it's also really fun. There's a lot of things that you can do inside of there. There's convolve, there's also filters. Yeah, Saturn Tune's a pretty good saturation unit. It gives you kind of more control, also kind of like what Trash 2 does as well. And they also have a lot of good presets inside of there as well. Personally, I think that the Ableton saturator is probably one of the best out there. It's super quick, easy to use, pretty low on CPU. Just know that for each of these saturation units that you use, you could be using up a lot of CPU. Rift is also another fun one to use. It's just a really cool interface, very easy to use, a lot of cool presets. Overdrive, which is also another Ableton saturator as well. Super easy to use, fun. The J37 is a tape emulation saturator that was used back in the older days. A favorite, I believe this one is from Soundtoys. Sorry, this one's from Waves Audio. Decapitator, probably my most used plugin. It is an emulator of a, honestly, I don't even remember what it is, but it's a really good one. It's very good on a lot of synths. My distortion rack, that's some secret sauce, but maybe I can make a video on that a little bit later. Black Ice, this is just if I plug in a guitar and mess around, then I'll throw this on. Sometimes I use it creatively, but I honestly don't really use it that much. I also have Sausage Fattener, which I honestly don't really use that much. I've just been gravitating a lot towards Trash, Saturator, Rift, Overdrive, Decapitator, and the J37. Honestly, in the beginning, I wouldn't buy any type of saturators or distortion plugins. Initially, just get the lay of the land, especially with the Ableton and Overdrive. And there's also a lot of other saturation units inside of Ableton as well, and I will actually go over those with you real quick. So you have Cabinet, which emulates typical guitar cabinets. Compressor can act as a saturator as well. Drum Bus, this is actually a pretty good one. This has a lot of saturation inside of it. Dynamic Tube. The Glue Compressor can act as a saturation unit. Same thing with Limiter. A pedal. Yeah. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Like I said, you guys don't have to buy anything in the beginning. You can just play around in your DAW of choice. They usually have a lot of good saturation plugins that's organic to that. Anyhow, I hope this helped you out, guys. And if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next. And if you did have any questions on this, please let me know. Peace.